From this spot, you can actually see where the Fitzgerald is, where it was lying, I should say. You see there's a direction, so we're gonna follow that right out there. Just right out there. That's where she lies. Of course, it is illegal to dive on her. She's protected by the government of Canada, which I think is a really good thing. So, as we look now on Lake Superior, it looks so calm, right? Smooth. It's almost hard to picture how it was that night. 35 knot winds that grew to 50 knot winds, waves, 20, 30 feet high. Both the Fitzgerald and the Anderson reported taking waves over 30 feet off the water level. Those are some pretty high waves. And of course the Anderson was following the Fitzgerald. The Anderson was doing radar duty for the both of them as they were coming in here, heading for Whitefish Bay. And it was after 7:10 p.m. on the 9th of November 10th, 1975, when Captain McSorley transmitted the last words that anyone ever heard off of the Fitzgerald. When asked how they were faring, he reported, "We're holding our own." At that point, they had a pretty severe list. They had lost one of the guardrails, and they were just trying and fighting to get into the protection of Whitefish Bay. As I pan here to the left a little bit, I can almost see how close they came, because that on the far distance is Whitefish Point. Actually, I take that back. That is not Whitefish Point. Yeah, keep going. Right there, you see that bit of dirt. See where the trees come down, and a bit of sand, and I think you could actually, can we almost make out the lighthouse there? That's all the zoom in I have. That's Whitefish Point, and that's where they were heading. The protection of Whitefish Bay. Never quite made it. So I came up here once before. I think it was in January or February, and I made a note. I needed to come back here again for the 50th anniversary of the sinking of the Edmund Fitzgerald. I'm going to pan back over here to where she lies. And of course, there is no marker out there to know exactly, but just know 8 kilometers offshore. So in that direction there. As I mentioned before, I grew up in Oregon, and living on the West Coast, the only way I knew about the Edmund Fitzgerald was from the song, of course, that we've all heard about the tale, about the sinking of Edmund Fitzgerald. And it was one of those events I was just aware of before I moved here. It wasn't until I moved here you really get a sense for how much that impacted everyone around here, and how many reports there are from people that night that remember that storm. I remember worrying about their loved ones out there on the lake. You know, it almost kind of hits home, you know, when you're standing here looking out there where she lies. Arthur and Anderson, of course, they lost the Fitzgerald from radar, reported into the Coast Guard, and they made it to the safety of Whitefish Bay. And I think it was around 9 p.m. that night, talking to the Coast Guard. They asked them if they would go back out. And of course, they were not super thrilled to do it, knowing what they had just faced coming through. But they did. They turned around and went back out to go search. That's just such an incredible thing. It really goes to give an example of how all these, you know, different boats and everyone, they're all sailors, and they all are there for each other, and all help each other if they can. You know, it's an amazing thing. Truly amazing thing. There we go. Just gonna let this run for a little bit here. No talking. I'll bring up the names of the crew of Edmund Fitzgerald, who all lost their lives on that night. I'll zoom out here. I want to show this plaque for anyone who didn't get to pause. See if I can do this without making anyone sick. One side is in French and one in English, so I'm going to leave this here. Give everyone a chance to read that. Okay. Just gonna leave this right there for the rest of this video. Right out there. can't even imagine what that was like. I thought it was important to come up here and just be here and look out there and just remember Thanks for joining myself, Argo, here from the Edmund Fitzgerald Lookout in Ontario, Canada. That's going to do it for this one.